before the ocean grows deep, before light begins to fade, there is a simple question many people quietly carry. Why do deep-sea creatures look stranger the deeper you go? At first glance, the answer feels unsettling. Large eyes, soft bodies, unfamiliar shapes, forms that do not match what the surface taught us to expect. But the truth is calmer than that. Deep-sea creatures do not become strange because something went wrong. They become unfamiliar because the world around them became quieter. As depth increases, light disappears, sound fades, movement slows, and when the environment asks for less, life responds by doing less. There is no reason for bright color where no light reaches, no reason for speed where nothing chases, no reason for rigid structure where pressure supports everything evenly. So bodies soften, faces simplify, movement becomes rare. What we call creepy is often just life without urgency, life without performance, life without the need to be understood. The deep sea is not designed for observation. It evolved without witnesses, and when suddenly illuminated, its quiet adaptations feel intense to minds shaped by daylight. This journey is not about fear. It is about letting go of surface expectations, about understanding that unfamiliar does not mean unsafe. As you listen, you do not need to imagine details. You do not need to remember facts. Just allow the pace to slow. Allow the world to dim. This is not a story that moves forward quickly. It descends, layer by layer, breath by breath, and as the ocean grows quieter, your mind is invited to do the same. When you are ready, the descent can begin. Before you fall asleep tonight, imagine yourself standing at the edge of the ocean, not during a storm, not during daylight, but late, when the surface is calm and the water reflects almost nothing at all. The deep sea does not begin with fear. It begins with quiet. Long before strange shapes appear, long before unfamiliar forms exist, the first thing that disappears is sound. As you move away from the shore, the ocean slowly lets go of noise. No voices, no wind moving through trees, no distant movement of cities, only water resting on itself. Most people imagine the deep ocean as sudden and dramatic, but the truth is softer than that. The descent happens gradually, meter by meter, layer by layer, and the deeper you go, the more the world simplifies. Near the surface, life moves quickly. Creatures dart, light flashes, waves push and pull. But as depth increases, everything begins to slow. This is where the story really begins. The reason deep-sea creatures look strange is not because something went wrong. It is because nothing rushed them. Down here, there is no urgency, no need to flee quickly, no need to react fast. Energy is precious. Movement is measured. Stillness becomes intelligent. As your mind begins to relax, picture yourself gently sinking, not falling, not drifting uncontrollably, just descending, as if the water itself is guiding you downward. Sunlight fades in stages. First reds disappear, then oranges, then yellows. Eventually, even blue light grows tired and lets go. Darkness in the deep ocean is not sudden, it arrives patiently. This is important because life does not resist this darkness, it adapts to it. And adaptation, over millions of years, creates shapes that feel unfamiliar to eyes that evolved in sunlight. The deep sea does not reward beauty, it rewards efficiency. Down here, there is no audience, no need for symmetry, no need for color, only function, only balance. As the pressure increases, water presses evenly from all sides. There are no sharp forces, no sudden impacts, just a constant, gentle weight. And under that weight, soft bodies make more sense than rigid ones. This is why many deep-sea creatures do not look firm or structured. They do not need to stand upright. They need to exist quietly. Some creatures become elongated. Others become rounded. Some appear almost unfinished to the human eye. But nothing here is accidental. Every shape is the result of patience. Think of how your own body relaxes when you stop holding tension. Shoulders drop, breathing slows, muscles soften. The deep sea has done the same thing over geological time. Human minds often label unfamiliar shapes as unsettling, but this reaction says more about us than about the ocean. Our brains evolved to recognize patterns quickly. Symmetry means safety. Familiar movement means predictability. The deep sea offers neither, and so we mistake difference for discomfort. But here, in the quiet below, there is no danger in being strange. There is only survival through simplicity. As the descent continues, space opens up, not crowded, not busy, wide, empty, still. Creatures rarely meet one another here. Encounters are rare. Movement is slow. There is no reason to hurry. This environment shapes bodies, the same way calm shapes the mind. When nothing demands attention, attention dissolves. Thoughts loosen their grip. Many deep-sea creatures do not chase food, they wait. Waiting costs less energy than searching. Stillness becomes a strategy. This is why mouths may look large, why limbs may seem delicate, why proportions feel unfamiliar. Everything is built for one moment at a time. No excess, no waste. As you rest here mentally, allow your breathing to mirror this world. Slow, unforced, unmeasured. The deep ocean does not sleep the way humans do, but it rests constantly, a continuous state of low energy, low stimulation, low urgency, and in that state, life continues quietly. There is nothing to watch for, nothing to anticipate, only depth and patience. As part 1 comes to close, you are not meant to remember facts. You are meant to feel the pace, the slowing, the letting go. The deeper you go, the less the world asks of you, and the stranger life becomes, only because it no longer needs what the surface once demanded. Rest here. The descent will continue when light begins to leave. As you continue downward, the first thing the ocean takes away is not warmth and not safety. It takes away light, not all at once, not suddenly. Light leaves the water slowly, as if it is growing tired. of traveling any further. Near the surface, sunlight moves freely. It scatters, it dances, it fills space easily. But water is not empty, it absorbs. And with every meter of depth, light becomes weaker, thinner, more selective. Red light disappears first. This is why blood looks dark underwater, why red objects fade into gray, then black, orange follows, then yellow, each color quietly letting go, one by one. By the time you reach deeper layers, only blue light remains. Blue travels farther in water than any other color. It moves calmly, without resistance. But even blue has its limit. Eventually, light stops arriving altogether. And when light leaves, the rules of appearance change. On the surface, shape is defined by contrast. Edges are visible. Movement is easy to track. But in darkness, visibility becomes expensive. Eyes must work harder. Energy must be conserved. And this is where deep-sea life begins to look unfamiliar. In a world without steady light, looking normal no longer helps. Symmetry loses importance. Smooth outlines matter less. What matters instead is sensitivity. Some creatures grow eyes far larger than their bodies seem to require. Not because they see more clearly, but because they need to catch the smallest possible hint of light. A faint glow, a passing shimmer, a distant movement. Large eyes are not dramatic, they are economical. Other creatures do the opposite. They let their eyes shrink or disappear entirely. Because when there is nothing to see, seeing becomes unnecessary. Energy saved from vision can be used elsewhere, for movement, for digestion, for simple survival. To the human mind, this feels unsettling. Eyes are familiar. They signal awareness. They signal presence. When eyes look too large or are missing altogether, we feel uncertain. But this discomfort comes from expectation, not danger. In darkness, the body rewrites its priorities. Touch becomes more important than sight. Pressure replaces distance. Vibration replaces sound. Long antennae appear. Sensitive whiskers. Extended fins that feel the water gently. These shapes look unusual only because we rely on vision so heavily. Down here, touch is safer than sight. Touch does not depend on light. It does not get confused by shadows. It simply reports what is there. As light fades, color loses meaning. Bright patterns no longer attract mates. Camouflage shifts. Black becomes useful. So does deep red. Red light does not travel far in water, which means red bodies appear black in darkness, invisible, quiet. This is why some deep-sea creatures appear dark, muted, or oddly colored, not because they are meant to be seen, because they are meant to disappear. When humans see images of these creatures, taken with artificial light, the contrast feels shocking. Sudden brightness reveals forms never meant to be illuminated, like turning on a light in a room meant for rest. Everything feels exposed, unprepared. The deep sea did not design itself for observation. It evolved without witnesses. As the world grows darker, movement also slows. Fast motion requires prediction. Prediction requires vision. Without reliable light, stillness becomes safer. Waiting becomes logical. This stillness shapes bodies. Soft tissues replace hard structures. Sharp edges soften. Flexible forms become more useful. Rigid skeletons are expensive to maintain under pressure. Soft bodies adapt more easily. They bend instead of breaking. This is another reason deep-sea creatures appear unfamiliar. They do not need to resist gravity the way surface creatures do. Water supports them evenly, so they relax into it. Imagine how your own body feels when fully supported, lying down, floating, resting, muscles release. The deep sea has allowed life to release tension permanently, without light, without urgency, without frequent interaction. Faces lose their meaning. Expressions are unnecessary. Mouths become tools, not signals. Eyes become sensors, or disappear. Bodies become systems, not displays. Humans often describe this as creepy because we search for intention. We look for recognition. And when nothing looks back at us in a familiar way, we feel unsettled. But the deep sea does not need to communicate with us. It communicates with pressure, with chemistry, with time. As you remain here, let your own vision soften. You do not need to picture details. Allow shapes to blur. Allow darkness to feel neutral, not empty. Darkness is not absence. It is simply reduced information. And reduced information is deeply calming to the mind. This is why your thoughts slow when the lights are off, why sleep arrives more easily without stimulation. The deep sea discovered this first. Life adjusted itself to minimal input, minimal output, minimal effort. As part 2 settles, remember this gently. Deep-sea creatures do not look strain because something is wrong. They look unfamiliar because light no longer guides design. Darkness does. Stay here. The descent continues when creatures begin quietly to make their own light. As natural light fades completely, the ocean does something unexpected. It does not remain entirely dark. Instead, small points of light begin to appear, not bright, not constant, soft, brief, carefully controlled. This is the moment where many people first describe deep-sea life as strange. But this light is not decoration. It is not display. It is communication. In the deep sea, light is too rare to waste. So when a creature produces it, it does so for a reason, and always with restraint. Bioluminescence is not fire. It is not heat. It is chemistry. A slow reaction inside living tissue that releases light without warmth. This matters because warmth would spread, attract attention, consume energy. Light alone can be precise. Most deep-sea light is blue or green. These colors travel farther in water. They are visible without being loud. Efficient. Some creatures glow softly, almost constantly. Others flash briefly, then return to darkness. Some release clouds of light, then drift away. None of this is random. In a world without sound, without landmarks, light becomes a quiet signal, a way to say, I am here, without shouting, For some creatures, light attracts food. Small organisms move toward the glow, mistaking it for something else. For others, light confuses predators. A sudden flash disorients, then disappears. Stillness returns, and for some, light is a language, a slow pulse, a pattern, recognition without touch. To human eyes, this can feel unsettling. Light usually means safety to us. Campfires, street lamps, windows at night. But in the deep sea, light does not mean comfort. It means function. This is where forms begin to look unfamiliar, because bodies must now carry their own illumination. Light-producing organs in unusual places, near mouths, along bellies, at the ends of thin extensions. Shapes stretch to support these systems. Balance shifts. The anglerfish is often mentioned here, not because it is frightening, but because it demonstrates the logic clearly. A small glowing point moves gently in the dark, not aggressive, not fast, patient. The body behind it remains almost invisible. Energy saved. When photographed with bright lights, this balance is broken. Sudden illumination reveals everything at once. Textures, teeth, eyes. The image feels intense because it violates the environment's rules. The deep sea never intended to be brightly lit, and life there never prepared to be seen all at once. Bioluminescence also explains why many deep-sea creatures appear thin, elongated, or irregular. Light needs placement, distance. A glowing point held away from the body is more effective than one pressed close. So structures extend, limbs stretch, proportions change. To us, this looks unnatural, but it is simply spatial logic. Light behaves differently underwater, so bodies adjust accordingly. Some creatures use light to hide themselves. This seems strange at first, but imagine looking up from below. Any body between you and the surface appears as a dark shape, unless it cancels its own shadow. Soft light along the underside matches the faint glow above. The body disappears, invisible. This technique is called counterillumination, but you do not need to remember the name. Only the feeling, balance, blending, not standing out. In the deep sea, being noticed is expensive, so even light is used to reduce attention. This is another reason deep-sea creatures feel unfamiliar. On land, light reveals. Here, light conceals. Our instincts reverse. As you imagine this world, notice how gentle the light is. No harsh beams, no constant glow, only brief signals in vast darkness, like thoughts appearing just before sleep. As the brain relaxes, it releases images slowly, one at a time, then lets them go. The deep sea does the same. Light appears, light fades, nothing lingers. This environment encourages calm. No bright stimulation, no overload, only enough information to continue existing. Because energy is limited, movement remains slow. Light is not paired with speed. There are no sudden chases, only drifting, waiting, responding when necessary. This slowness shapes faces. Mouths do not need to close quickly. Eyes do not need to track rapidly. Expressions freeze into function. Humans often interpret this stillness as something watching, but in reality, it is simply resting. As you rest here, let your own thoughts behave this way. No need to follow them. Allow them to glow briefly, then fade. The deep sea teaches this gently. Light is valuable, so it is used sparingly. And when it is no longer needed, it disappears. Deep-sea creatures look strange because they live in a world where light is rare, precise, and intentional. Their bodies carry this responsibility. As part 3 settles, remain with the soft glow. Nothing more, nothing less. In the next descent, we will notice how eyes themselves, why eyes begin to change, grow, or disappear. As the descent continues and the ocean grows darker still, eyes begin to change, not suddenly, not dramatically, but patiently, over time so long, it feels almost like stillness. On the surface, eyes are trusted above all else. They warn, they guide, they react quickly. But deep below, where light no longer arrives reliably, eyes become negotiable. They must earn their place. Eyes are expensive organs. They require constant energy. They process information continuously. They need light to justify their cost. And in the deep sea, light is rare. So evolution begins to ask a quiet question: is seeing worth it here? For some creatures, the answer is yes, but only just. Their eyes grow larger, not sharper. Large eyes do not mean clearer vision. They mean sensitivity. They catch faint glimmers, single flashes, the smallest bioluminescent signals, a distant pulse, a brief glow, enough to know something passed nearby. These eyes often appear oversized compared to the body. To human eyes, this feels unsettling. But in the deep sea, size is not expression. It is efficiency, more surface area, more chance to detect light. Nothing more. Other creatures reach a different conclusion. If light cannot be trusted, then sight becomes unnecessary. Eyes begin to shrink. Generation by generation, they lose complexity until one day they disappear entirely. This is not loss, it is release. Energy saved from vision is redirected toward touch, toward chemical sensing, toward awareness of pressure and movement. Imagine closing your eyes and noticing how other senses sharpen. Breathing becomes clearer. The weight of your body becomes noticeable. Small sounds become distinct. The deep sea does this permanently. Creatures without eyes do not move blindly. They move differently. They feel water currents. They detect vibrations. They sense changes in pressure. The ocean itself becomes their guide. Long feelers develop, thin extensions that explore space slowly. These shapes look unfamiliar because we do not rely on them, but they are gentle instruments, not aggressive, curious, cautious. In darkness, touch is safer than sight. Touch does not exaggerate. It does not mislead. It simply reports contact. This shift changes faces. Eyes no longer define identity. Mouths no longer signal emotion. Features become functional, quiet, unexpressive. Humans are deeply attuned to faces. We search for meaning in them, recognition, intent. When faces stop communicating with us, we feel uncertain. This is where the feeling of creepy often begins, not from threat, from silence. A face that does not respond to our expectations feels unfamiliar. But the deep sea does not exist to be recognized. It exists to endure. Some creatures carry eyes that no longer move. Others have eyes fixed in place. Movement costs energy. Stillness conserves it. In a world without frequent interaction, expressiveness fades. There is no one to impress, no one to warn loudly, only occasional contact, occasional need. Eyes also change placement. Some move upward, watching faint light above. Others shift outward, detecting motion on the edges. Symmetry loosens, balance adjusts. Bodies reorganize themselves around necessity. This is another reason deep-sea creatures look strange. Their faces are not meant to be read. They are meant to function quietly, in isolation. As you imagine this, allow your own face to soften. Jaw unclenches, brow relaxes, eyes rest without effort. When the brain prepares for sleep, facial muscles release. Microexpressions disappear. The face becomes neutral. The deep sea mirrors this state. Nothing here needs to react quickly. Nothing here needs to interpret complex social signals. Stillness is enough. Some deep-sea creatures appear almost unfinished to us. Eyes small, features subtle, but in truth, they are complete for their world. We only notice the absence because we expect more. Expectation creates discomfort. Release creates calm. As the environment stabilizes into darkness, pressure and silence, forms simplify. Life becomes economical. Nothing extra, nothing wasted. This is why deep-sea creatures do not resemble surface life. They are not optimized for visibility. They are optimized for continuity. As part 4 settles, let your own awareness do the same. You do not need to look. You do not need to observe. You are safe to rest without scanning your surroundings. The deep sea learned this lesson long before humans did, and it lives by it. Quietly drift here. The descent can soften, stretch, and seem unfinished. As the ocean deepens further, pressure becomes constant, not crushing, not dramatic, just present, everywhere. Unlike the surface world, where weight pulls downward, the deep sea presses evenly. From all directions, there is no single force to resist, only a steady embrace. And under this kind of pressure, hard structures become less useful. Rigid forms crack. Stiff joints resist movement. Sharp edges concentrate stress, so the deep sea chooses another path. Softness. Many deep-sea creatures do not have hard skeletons. Instead, they rely on flexible tissue, gel-like structures, and slow-moving forms. To human eyes, this can look unsettling. Bodies appear loose, edges blur, shapes seem incomplete, but nothing here is fragile. Softness absorbs pressure better than strength. Consider the jellyfish, not dramatic, not fast, just drifting. Its body offers no resistance to water. Pressure passes through it evenly. No strain, no stress. In the deep sea, this is an advantage. Other creatures, like the giant isopod, carry segmented bodies. Each segment moves slightly, sharing the load. Nothing locks into place. Nothing fights the environment. Even fish that resemble surface species begin to change shape. Muscles thin, bodies elongate, movement becomes minimal. Energy is saved by doing less. This is where humans often say, it looks wrong, but wrong only means different from what we expect. We expect firmness. We expect symmetry. We expect purpose to be visible. The deep sea does not display purpose. It hides it in function. Take the blobfish, often shown out of context. When brought to the surface, its body collapses, not because it is weak, but because it was never meant to resist air. At depth, it holds its shape perfectly. Water pressure supports it. On land, that support vanishes. This misunderstanding is common. Many deep-sea creatures look unusual only when removed from their world. They are perfectly balanced where they belong. Some creatures stretch themselves thin, like ribbons or threads, not to intimidate, but to increase surface area. A longer body detects more movement, more vibration. In darkness, space is sensed through contact. Length becomes awareness. Others grow wide mouths relative to their bodies. Food is rare. When it appears, there may not be another chance soon. A large mouth increases success, not aggression. Opportunity. To us, large mouths and small eyes feel mismatched, but the deep sea does not aim to look balanced. It aims to survive uncertainty. Even teeth change. They are not built for chewing. They are built for holding, digesting slowly. Nothing is rushed. This slow digestion shapes bodies further. Stomachs stretch, organs rearrange. The entire form becomes flexible, adaptable. Humans are unsettled by flexibility without structure. We associate firmness with strength, but in this environment, yielding is stronger. Pressure also removes the need to fight gravity. Bodies do not need legs. They do not need upright posture. They float. They drift. They settle gently. This is why many deep-sea creatures seem to lack orientation. Up and down matter less. Forward and backward blur. The body exists in space rather than on a surface. As you imagine this, notice how calming it feels to remove orientation. No need to sit upright. No need to hold yourself. The body simply rests. Some deep-sea animals appear almost transparent, organs visible, structures faint. Transparency reduces visibility. If light appears suddenly, there is less to see, less contrast, less attention. Again, what looks strange to us is simply invisibility at work. Creatures like the glass squid use this to great effect. Their bodies allow light to pass through, leaving almost no shadow. They exist without announcing themselves. Others adopt irregular textures, ridges, folds, soft protrusions. These break up outlines. Edges disappear into darkness. The human brain likes clean lines. Nature here prefers ambiguity. This is where the feeling of creepy often intensifies for observers, not because of threat, because the brain cannot categorize easily. And when categorization fails, the mind stays alert. But the deep sea is not alert. It is patient. It waits. It conserves. It releases. As you settle into this environment mentally, allow your own sense of form to soften. Your body does not need to be rigid. Your posture can loosen. The surface world demands structure. The deep sea invites rest. In this pressure-balanced world, nothing collapses, nothing strains. Everything simply exists in equilibrium. This is why deep-sea creatures often look unfinished to us. They stopped building. Once they had enough, there was no need to add more. As part 5 comes to rest, remain with this idea gently. Strangeness here is not excess. It is absence. Absence of tension. Absence of display. Absence of urgency. And when urgency leaves, rest becomes natural. Drift a little deeper. The ocean remains calm, large, and hunger shapes faces. As the descent continues, movement becomes rare, not because life has vanished, but because energy has become valuable. Every motion matters. Every decision is measured. And the deep say, food does not arrive often. There are no fields, no forests, no steady sources. What falls from above arrives slowly, in small amounts, over long stretches of time. A drifting fragment, a sinking body, an unexpected encounter. And because these moments are rare, the body prepares for them. This is where mouths begin to change, not to appear threatening, but to increase success when opportunity appears. Many deep-sea creatures have mouths larger than expected for their body size. This is not aggression. It is mathematics. A larger opening means fewer missed chances. When food appears once in a long while, there is no room for precision, only capture. Some fish can open their mouths far wider than their heads suggest. Joints loosen, ligaments stretch. The body does not resist this change. Flexibility allows survival. To human eyes, this looks exaggerated, a face defined by a mouth instead of eyes. But in darkness, faces are not for communication. They are tools. Teeth also behave differently here. They are often thin, needle-like, angled inward, not for chewing, for holding. Food is not processed quickly. It is secured. Digestion happens slowly. Energy is extracted over time. This slow pace affects posture. Creatures do not need strong necks or fast reactions. They wait. When the moment arrives, the body responds fully, then returns to stillness. The gulper eel is one example. Its mouth opens wide, far beyond what seems reasonable. But this design allows it to consume prey larger than itself, a rare event, a valuable one. Nothing here is wasteful. Other creatures, like the deep-sea anglerfish, combine light and mouth together. The glow attracts attention. The mouth receives it. The process is quiet, efficient. Humans often interpret large mouths as signs of danger. because on land, mouths are tied to threat displays, teeth bared, sounds made. In the deep sea, mouths do not announce themselves. They wait in silence. This silence is what feels unfamiliar. We expect warning. We expect intention. But intention here is minimal. Respond only when necessary. Hunger also reshapes bodies internally. Stomachs stretch. Some species can expand their stomachs to hold meals larger than their own body. Afterward, they rest, digest, wait again. There is no urgency to eat often. There is no rush to move. Everything is paced for endurance. This endurance shapes faces that seem frozen. Expressions do not change quickly. Muscles are not built for constant movement. Stillness dominates. To human observers, this lack of expressiveness can feel unsettling. We rely on faces to tell us stories. Emotion, intention, response. Deep-sea faces tell none of these. They do not need to. They exist without audience. As you imagine this world, notice how calm hunger feels here. Not anxious, not demanding, just present, waiting. This mirrors how the body behaves as it prepares for sleep. Appetite quiets, digestion slows, energy shifts inward, the face relaxes, the jaw softens, the deep sea operates in this state permanently. A low-demand environment, a low-output system. Some creatures even lose the ability to close their mouths completely, not because of weakness, but because closure is unnecessary. Holding is enough. This challenges our idea of completeness. We expect closure. The deep sea accepts openness, and openness in darkness is not vulnerability. It is readiness. As part 6 settles, rest with this understanding gently. Deep sea creatures look strain because hunger shaped them to wait patiently, not to hunt aggressively. Their faces reflect scarcity, not threat. Let your own body adopt this calm. There is nothing you need to seek, nothing you need to prepare for. Rest is enough. The ocean remains still, and so movement slows, and stillness becomes intelligence. As the ocean grows deeper still, movement becomes rare, not absent, just careful. Every motion is considered, not consciously, but through structure. On the surface, movement is constant. Waves push, currents shift, creatures swim, chase, escape. But deep below, the ocean settles, currents weaken, water layers become stable, and in this stability, speed loses its value. Speed requires fuel. Fast muscles consume energy quickly. Quick reactions demand constant alertness. In the deep sea, energy arrives slowly, so bodies adjust. They choose endurance over intensity. Many deep-sea creatures move only when necessary. They drift, they hover, they wait. Fins become long and thin, designed for subtle adjustments, not bursts of power. Muscles soften. Nothing is built for sprinting. To human eyes, this lack of movement can feel eerie. We associate stillness with attention, with watching, but here, stillness is rest. A creature suspended in water, barely moving, is not waiting to strike. It is conserving energy. It is letting the environment do the work. Some deep-sea animals barely move at all for long periods. They float in place, balanced perfectly against the water. Buoyancy replaces effort. The body learns to stay without struggle. This is another reason deep-sea creatures look unfamiliar. Their bodies are not tense. They are not braced. They are not prepared for constant reaction. They are prepared for patience on land. Stillness often signals vulnerability. A lack of motion invites danger. In the deep sea, motion attracts attention. Stillness hides. Predators here do not chase, they wait. Prey does not flee quickly. It drifts away slowly. Everything follows the same rhythm. This rhythm shapes posture. Bodies align horizontally. Limbs extend gently. Nothing points sharply forward. Nothing signals urgency. Humans interpret sharp angles as intent. The deep sea smooths those away. Curves replace edges. Flow replaces direction. This can feel disorienting to us. We like to know where something is going, but here, direction matters less than presence. Movement also becomes more economical. Small fin movements, gentle tail waves, enough to stay oriented, enough to adjust position. No more. This economy affects the nervous system. Fast reflexes fade. Slow responses dominate. The body learns that there is time. This mirrors what happens as you prepare for sleep. Reaction time lengthens. Muscles stop anticipating. The body no longer prepares to respond instantly. Stillness spreads. Thoughts slow. Breathing deepens. The deep sea lives permanently in this state. A world without alarms, without deadlines, without sudden demands. Some creatures even lose the ability to swim continuously. They rely on passive movement, drifting with currents, letting gravity and buoyancy do the work. To humans, this looks like surrender, but it is trust. Trust in an environment that does not change quickly. This is why deep-sea life appears almost dreamlike. Movements feel delayed. Responses feel muted. The world feels distant. And because faces and bodies do not react quickly, we struggle to read them. This uncertainty creates discomfort. But again, the discomfort comes from expectation, not threat. The deep sea has no need for constant awareness. Nothing arrives suddenly. Nothing leaves abruptly. Time stretches. As you rest with this idea, allow your own body to stop anticipating. You do not need to respond. You do not need to react. You are allowed to drift. Stillness is not emptiness. It is efficiency. It is intelligence adapted to calm conditions. Deep-sea creatures look strange because they have learned that doing less is often the safest choice. As part 7 settles, remain in this quiet. Movement can wait. Nothing requires your attention. The ocean continues. Its patient colors fade, darken, or disappear completely. As the descent continues, color begins to lose its purpose, not all at once. Gradually, as light grows weaker, color stops being useful information. On the surface, color speaks loudly. It warns, it attracts. It signals health, danger, readiness. But in the deep sea, where light barely arrives, color becomes invisible, and invisible traits are unnecessary. Most colors require strong light to exist. Without it, they fade into gray, then into black. This is why deep-sea creatures rarely display bright patterns, not because they lack complexity, because complexity cannot be seen. Black becomes one of the most effective colors. In darkness, black absorbs what little light remains. It removes outlines. It erases edges. A black body in deep water is difficult to notice, even when light briefly appears. Red is another common color. This seems surprising, but red light does not travel far underwater. At depth, red objects appear black, invisible, silent. So creatures that appear red when photographed are often completely hidden in their natural environment. The color exists, but it does not announce itself. This is another reason deep-sea animals look strange to us. Our images are taken with artificial light. Sudden brightness reveals colors never meant to be revealed. The creature is seen out of context. Some deep-sea animals lose pigmentation altogether. They become pale, almost colorless. Light passing through them does not reflect strongly. Edges soften. The body blends into space. Transparency becomes a form of camouflage. Not dramatic, not absolute, just enough. Creatures like the glass octopus or certain deep-sea shrimp allow light to pass through their bodies. Organs remain faint. The outline disappears. To the human eye, this feels unsettling. We expect bodies to be solid, defined. But in a world of minimal light, definition attracts attention. Blurring protects. Patterns also lose importance. Stripes and spots serve no function when no one can see them. They fade over time. Evolution removes what is unused. This simplification of appearance is not emptiness. It is focus. Only traits that matter remain. As color fades, texture becomes more important. Subtle ridges, soft folds, these break up shape without needing pigment. Again, this makes bodies harder to read. The brain struggles to interpret what it sees, and this uncertainty is often labeled as creepy. But here, nothing is trying to confuse you. It is simply not designed to be looked at closely. As you imagine this world, notice how calm it feels to remove color. No brightness, no contrast, only gentle shades. This is why dim rooms feel soothing, why low light helps the brain slow down. Color demands attention. Darkness allows rest. The deep sea exists in permanent low light, and life there has aligned itself with that calm. Some creatures even change color depending on depth, not quickly, slowly. As they move through layers, pigmentation adjusts. Nothing is fixed, everything responds. This adaptability shapes bodies that seem unfinished, but they are simply flexible, responsive to their environment. When humans encounter these creatures, we see them in isolation, removed from darkness, illuminated fully. Our brains receive more information than expected. The result feels intense, but intensity is not the natural state here. Subtlety is. As part 8 settles, allow your own mental images to soften. You do not need sharp focus. Let details blur. Let edges fade. The deep sea teaches this quietly. When stimulation decreases, rest becomes easier. Deep sea creatures look strain because color no longer guides form. Darkness does. Stay with the dimness. The descent continues, the loneliness of the deep, and why bodies adapt to rare encounters. As the ocean deepens even further, space begins to feel different. Not crowded, not active, wide, empty, uninterrupted. In the deep sea, distance matters. Creatures do not pass one another often. They do not live in groups. They do not gather. Encounters are rare, sometimes separated by days, sometimes by months, sometimes by an entire lifetime. This loneliness shapes everything. It shapes movement, it shapes communication, and it shapes bodies. On the surface, life is dense. Sounds overlap, movements intersect, signals compete, bright colors, fast reactions, complex behaviors, all make sense there. But in the deep sea, there is no crowd, nothing to compete with, nothing to impress. When encounters are rare, bodies change their priorities. There is no need for constant alertness, no need for expressive faces, no need for social signaling. Energy spent communicating would be wasted, so it fades. This is one reason deep-sea creatures often appear emotionless to us. Faces lack expression. Eyes do not track movement dramatically, not because they are unaware, because awareness is quiet. Some deep-sea animals may live their entire lives without meeting another of their kind, except briefly, and so their bodies do not rely on recognition. They rely on chemistry. When reproduction is necessary, signals are subtle. A faint chemical trace in the water, a slow glow, a rare meeting. Bodies do not advertise, they wait. This waiting shapes form. There is no advantage in looking distinctive. Standing out invites attention. That may not be safe. Blending into space becomes more valuable than being noticed. Humans often feel unsettled by solitary forms. We are social by design. We expect interaction when we see a creature alone. Motionless, unreactive, we project intention onto it. Watching, waiting, but in the deep sea, waiting is neutral. It is simply the state of being. Some creatures have bodies that seem oversized for their environment. Long limbs, extended fins. This is not for display. It increases the chance of accidental contact. When encounters are rare, a larger reach matters. Other creatures grow sensory organs that detect minute changes, a shift in pressure, a vibration, not because something is happening often, but because when it does, it matters. This rarity also affects lifespan. Many deep-sea creatures grow slowly. They age gradually. There is no pressure to mature quickly. Time stretches. The body follows. Slow growth produces forms that look ancient to us, unhurried, unpolished. as if time itself did not interfere much. This is another reason deep-sea life feels strange. It is not optimized for speed or efficiency. It is optimized for patience. In such an environment, mistakes are costly, a wasted movement, a missed opportunity. So bodies evolve to reduce error, simpler actions, slower responses, fewer decisions. This simplicity can feel eerie to human observers. We equate complexity with intelligence, but the deep sea practices a different kind of intelligence, one that removes choice rather than adding it. As you imagine this vast space, notice how calming it feels to remove social pressure. No need to perform, no need to respond. You can exist without being seen. The mind often relaxes when it no longer feels observed. The deep sea lives in this state permanently. Silence deepens, nothing approaches, nothing leaves, only presence. Some creatures develop unusual reproductive adaptations, permanent attachments, minimal encounters, because finding a partner may happen only once. Bodies adapt accordingly. To us, these forms look unfamiliar, but they are shaped by rarity, not danger. As part 9 settles, rest with this idea gently. Deep-sea creatures look strange because they evolved in a world of distance where nothing happens often and nothing needs to rush. Let your own thoughts spread out. There is no need to fill space. Silence is enough. The ocean remains vast, and you can rest within it. Feels unfamiliar to the human mind. As the descent continues, it becomes clear that the strangeness of deep-sea creatures does not come only from them. It also comes from us, from the way the human mind expects the world to behave. Our brains evolved in daylight, on land, in open air, surrounded by faces, voices, movement, and predictable gravity. These conditions shaped what feels normal to us. The deep sea breaks nearly every one of those assumptions. Light is absent. Sound travels differently. Movement is slow. Faces do not respond. The environment itself conflicts with our expectations. When expectations fail, the brain becomes alert, not because of danger, because of uncertainty. This is where the word creepy often appears. Creepiness is not fear. It is confusion without explanation. When we see a deep-sea creature, our mind searches for familiar patterns. Eyes in the right place, symmetry, expressions. When those patterns are missing, the brain cannot relax immediately. It keeps checking. In sleep, the brain does the opposite. It stops checking. It releases the need to interpret. The deep sea already lives. In that state, deep sea creatures do not signal intention. They do not announce presence. They do not warn loudly. They exist without commentary. This silence feels unnatural to us, but it is natural to them. Another perspective shift comes from scale. On land, size often indicates importance. Large animals dominate space. In the deep sea, size means very little. Some creatures grow large to store energy. Others remain small to reduce demand. Neither strategy signals power. just balance. Humans also expect motion to explain presence. If something is alive, it should move. But deep sea life teaches that life can be still. Alive does not mean active. When we see a creature that barely moves, our mind hesitates. Is it aware? Is it watching? But awareness does not require motion. Rest can be a permanent state. The deep sea also challenges our sense of direction. Up and down blur. Horizon disappears. Bodies float. Our brains rely on orientation to feel safe. Without it, we feel ungrounded. This disorientation transfers onto the creatures we see. Their bodies do not align with our sense of space. They seem wrong because the environment is wrong for us, not for them. Another layer comes from time. Surface life is fast. Days and nights cycle clearly. Seasons change. In the deep sea, time is almost invisible. No sunlight, minimal temperature change. Life does not measure time the way we do. Creatures grow slowly, move slowly, react slowly. To us, this feels eerie. We associate slowness with decline, but here, slowness is stability. This difference in time perception creates unfamiliar forms. Bodies are not built to handle urgency. They are built to exist indefinitely. The human mind also expects purpose to be obvious. Claws for grabbing, legs for walking. Deep sea bodies hide their purpose. Function is internal. External form tells little. This forces our minds to work harder, and effort disrupts calm. As you rest with this idea, notice how the mind relaxes when it stops trying to understand. You do not need to label. You do not need to interpret. You can simply observe, then let go. The deep sea does not ask to be understood. It continues regardless. This is why it feels strange. It does not respond to our expectations, and yet it is not hostile. It is simply indifferent to being observed. As part 10 settles, allow this shift in perspective. Deep sea creatures look strange because they were never shaped for the human mind. They were shaped for darkness, silence, and time without urgency. Your mind can rest here. No need to make sense. Understanding can wait. The descent remains gentle, and sleep pressure moves closer as a constant companion. As you move deeper still, there is something present everywhere. Not visible, not dramatic, but constant. Pressure. On the surface, pressure changes. Weather shifts. Altitude rises and falls. The body is always adjusting. But in the deep sea, pressure does not fluctuate. It remains steady, unmoving, reliable. Every part of a deep sea creature exists under this pressure from the moment it forms. There is no escape from it. And so, life does not resist. It adapts. Pressure presses equally from all sides. There is no single direction to push against. This changes how bodies are built. Strong bones become unnecessary. Rigid joints lose purpose. Soft tissues thrive. Many deep-sea creatures contain very little empty space. No air pockets, no cavities. Everything is filled with fluid. Pressure passes through them evenly. No strain, no collapse. This is why some bodies appear dense, compact, or oddly proportioned. They are not designed to oppose force. They are designed to distribute it. Humans often imagine pressure as crushing, as something dangerous. But for deep-sea life, pressure is simply the environment, like air is to us, unnoticed. This constant pressure creates stability. There are no sudden changes, no jolts, no sharp impacts, just continuity. This stability shapes behavior. Creatures do not need fast escape responses. Nothing arrives suddenly. Nothing leaves abruptly. The environment moves slowly. Pressure also slows chemistry. Reactions occur at a calmer pace. Metabolism reduces. Everything settles. This is another reason deep-sea creatures appear slow and deliberate. Their internal systems operate in harmony with pressure. The human body experiences something similar as it prepares for sleep. Blood pressure lowers slightly, breathing deepens, muscle tension decreases, the system stabilizes. The deep sea lives permanently in this state of equilibrium. No peaks, no drops, just balance. Some creatures even rely on pressure to maintain shape. Remove them from depth, and their bodies change. Not because they are weak, because their support system has vanished. This misunderstanding has shaped many human impressions. We see collapsed forms and assume fragility, but fragility only exists outside the environment. At depth, these bodies are perfectly stable. Pressure also affects sound. Vibrations travel differently. Noise is muted. Sudden disturbances fade quickly. The environment absorbs them. This quiet supports stillness. No loud interruptions. No sharp signals. The world remains soft. As you imagine this pressure, do not picture weight. Picture support, even presence. A steady, gentle hold, like being wrapped without being squeezed, held without effort. This is why deep-sea creatures often look relaxed. Limbs droop, bodies float. Nothing strains upward, nothing braces. Humans associate tension with readiness. The deep sea associates relaxation with survival. As part 11 settles, rest with this thought gently. Deep sea creatures look strange because they evolved in a world where pressure never lets go, so they stopped pushing back. You can do the same. There is nothing to resist, nothing to hold, just balance. The ocean holds steady, and rest continues. The mind stops interpreting. As the descent reaches its deepest layers, something subtle begins to change. Not in the ocean, but in the way it is experienced. At this depth, there is very little information. No light, no sound, no sudden movement. The environment offers almost nothing for the mind to interpret. And because of that, interpretation gently fades. The human brain is always working, labeling, predicting, explaining. This is useful on the surface, but in the deep sea, there is nothing to label. Nothing asks for attention. Deep sea creatures live without constant interpretation. Their nervous systems are simple. Responses are limited. Signals are few. The world does not demand explanation. This is where strangeness dissolves, because strangeness requires comparison, and comparison requires reference points. Here, there are none. When humans describe deep-sea life as creepy, they are still thinking, still comparing, still interpreting. But if you remain here long enough, that urge softens. The brain begins to mirror the environment. Less input, less output. Thoughts slow, connections loosen. This is the state. Your mind enters just before deep sleep. The analytical mind steps aside. Pattern recognition quiets. Language fades. The deep sea lives in this condition permanently. No storytelling, no narrative, just existence. Deep sea creatures do not need to understand their environment. They respond to it without interpretation. Pressure changes, movement occurs, chemistry shifts, the body reacts, then returns to rest. This simplicity shapes forms that feel unfamiliar to thinking minds. Because thinking minds search for meaning. Here, meaning is unnecessary. As you rest here, allow the need to understand, to loosen. You do not need to follow explanations. You do not need to remember details. Let the words pass through you. Like water, breathing becomes deeper, longer, more even. Each breath asks less effort. The muscles release further. Jaw, neck, shoulders, even the small muscles around the eyes. In deep sleep, the brain stops monitoring the environment. It trusts that nothing needs response. The deep sea already trusts this. Nothing here arrives suddenly. Nothing here demands action. This is why deep-sea creatures can remain still for long periods. Their world does not punish rest. Your body understands this instinctively. It has been preparing for it. Since the light dimmed, thoughts may still appear, soft images, fragments. You do not need to engage them. They will drift away on their own. The deep sea does not hold onto motion. It allows it to pass. This is the deepest layer of calm. Not emptiness, just reduced effort. As part 12 settles, there is nothing more to add, nothing to analyze, nothing to explain. Deep-sea creatures look strange only to minds that are still awake. To a resting mind, they simply exist. Let your mind rest with them. No interpretation, no expectation. Sleep can take over whenever it wants. The deep sea as Earth's largest quiet place. By the time you reach this depth, the idea of distance begins to change. Not distance between places, but distance between moments. In the deep sea, almost nothing happens quickly, and because of that, almost nothing interrupts rest. On the surface, even during the night, there is motion. Wind shifts, temperatures change, animals move, light appears and disappears. The world never fully settles, but the deep sea is different. It is the closest place on Earth to uninterrupted calm. There are no seasons here, no sunrise, no sunset. Temperature remains nearly the same, year after year, century after century. Time does not announce itself, it simply passes. This constancy shapes life in quiet ways. When nothing changes suddenly, There is no need for vigilance. The nervous system relaxes. The body does not prepare for surprises. Deep-sea creatures live in a permanent night that never grows louder or brighter. Their bodies learned long ago that alertness is optional. Rest is safe. This is one of the deepest reasons they appear unfamiliar to us. We are shaped by change. They are shaped by stability. On land, quiet is temporary, a pause between events. In the deep sea, quiet is continuous. It does not end. Sound travels far underwater, but there is very little to carry it. No storms reach this depth. No waves disturb the water. Even earthquakes fade before reaching here. What remains is low-frequency vibration, soft, distant, almost imperceptible. This is why deep-sea life does not react sharply. There are no sharp signals, only gentle shifts. The absence of noise allows bodies to simplify. No need for quick hearing. No need for rapid processing. Everything slows. Humans often feel unsettled by extreme quiet. Silence forces attention inward. Thoughts become louder when the world grows quiet. But if the quiet continues long enough, even thoughts soften. The deep sea exists beyond that threshold, where silence is no longer noticeable. It simply becomes the background. Creatures that live here do not experience boredom. They do not wait for stimulation. They exist within calm as a baseline. This is why their bodies do not express urgency. There is nothing to rush toward, nothing to escape. Even danger behaves differently here. Predators do not chase loudly. Prey does not flee suddenly. Encounters are slow. Consequences unfold gently. This gentleness shapes appearance. Sharp lines soften. Strong contrasts fade. The body does not prepare for impact. Imagine living in a place where nothing collides, where nothing falls suddenly, where gravity feels neutral. The body would eventually stop bracing. Muscles would relax permanently. Deep-sea creatures reflect this. They are not tense. They are not coiled. They are settled. This settling is what humans often mistake for lifelessness. But it is not absence. It is completion. The deep sea is also vast. Space stretches without landmarks. No walls, no edges, just openness. This openness removes pressure to orient oneself. There is no right direction. Up and down lose meaning. The body floats within space rather than occupying it. Humans depend on boundaries to feel secure. Walls, ground, ceilings. The deep sea offers none. And yet, life here feels no anxiety. It has adapted to openness. As you imagine this, notice how calming it feels to release orientation. You do not need to know where you are. You do not need to know what comes next. This is the mental state of deep sleep, awareness without direction, presence without effort. In this state, the brain stops tracking time. Minutes and hours lose meaning. Only continuity remains. The deep sea does not count time. It does not mark progress. It simply continues. Deep-sea creatures are shaped by this endless continuation. They are not designed for short lives. They are designed for persistence. Some species live far longer than their surface relatives. Growth is slow. Aging is gradual. The body does not burn quickly. It conserves. This longevity adds to the feeling of unfamiliarity. These forms feel ancient to us, not because they are old, but because they are unhurried. As part 13 settles, allow your own sense of time to loosen. There is no schedule here, no next moment to anticipate. The deep sea remains quiet, not empty, just complete. Deep sea creatures look strange because they evolved in the most stable, silent environment on Earth, and stability allows rest to become permanent. Remain here gently, nothing drifting without an ending. At this depth, there is no clear boundary, no final layer, no edge where the ocean stops. The deep sea does not announce that you have arrived. It simply continues. This is the final shift, not into darkness, but into absence of direction. There is nothing more to understand here. No more patterns to notice. No more explanations to follow. The deep sea no longer asks for attention. Deep sea creatures live their entire existence without a sense of arrival. They do not move toward goals. They do not prepare for endings. They continue because continuation is enough. This is perhaps the strangest idea for the human mind. We are shaped by beginnings and endings, starts, stops, transitions. But the deep sea exists between those markers, endlessly. Bodies here are not designed for progress. They are designed for presence. There is no reward for reaching something, no penalty for staying still. The environment does not chain based on action. It simply remains. Deep-sea creatures do not know that they are deep. They do not experience depth as distance. It is simply the world, and because the world does not demand reaction, the body does not prepare. Muscles remain relaxed. Responses remain slow. Awareness becomes soft. This is the state the human mind reaches in deep sleep, not unconsciousness, but release. The mind stops tracking itself. Thoughts no longer comment on one another. Images drift without attachment. The deep sea mirrors this. Movement happens without intention. Drifting replaces direction. Some creatures float their entire lives, not swimming, not resting, just suspended. They are not waiting, they are complete. Humans often describe deep-sea life as lonely, but loneliness requires awareness of absence here. Absence is normal. Nothing is missing. Nothing is expected. This is why deep-sea creatures do not appear expressive. Expression is unnecessary when nothing needs to be communicated. Faces soften, bodies simplify, everything settles into minimal effort. As you rest here, there is no need to hold onto the story. You do not need to remember the descent. You do not need to think about creatures or darkness or pressure. Those ideas can dissolve now. Breathing continues on its own, slow, even. The body knows what to do, just like deep-sea life knows how to exist without guidance. There is no ending here, only continuation, and continuation does not require attention. If sleep arrives, nothing needs to change. If it has already arrived, there is nothing to notice. The deep sea does not wake itself, it remains. Deep sea creatures look strain only until the mind stops comparing. After that, they simply belong to their world, and you belong. To rest, drift, there is nowhere else to go.